Hello everyone, my name is James and I have high functioning autism, which means I am on the higher end of the autism spectrum, also known as ASD. In this video, I would like to share my experience of being around various special need teachers in classes from pre-K all the way to college. I will share my experience from experiencing various forms of special education teaching styles I have encountered and share the advantages and disadvantages I notice, so that way, as you as a parent or a person with high functioning autism or ASD can also have a better idea of what to expect. Before I begin, I want to say that I am in my mid-30s and I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s. So the earlier part of my special ed transcript was before Asperger's and ASD, high functioning autism, became known and mainstreamed in the DSM-5. When I was in pre-K, I went to all special ed schools before first grade. I used to ride a short bus all across town to different schools consisting of classes with other people with various disability like Down syndrome and other learning delays. I was diagnosed at the time with PDD-NOS by doctors. The school I attended focused mostly on speech, which I found helpful. I was a late bloomer when it came to speech, and I didn't start speaking fluently until I was about 4 years old. I found the constant speech focus in the Massachusetts school system around there was a teaching curriculum that I really enjoyed. I had good memories about it to this day. However, I eventually went to this one noteworthy school called SMEC School. That was a tiny school in one building that only had 7 to 10 kids, but had 5 teachers, yes 5, that oversaw us. The teachers were very strict and used a tough style of teaching where they used a lot of strict discipline. The teaching style was called defiant behavioral intervention. These things mostly included teachers physically restraining or pushing their heads down on the desk, or teachers restraining the students next to them if they misbehaved or didn't follow a rule. Kids often went to a timeout space, such as a large cubby, when they were bad, and teachers often yelled at them a lot. This curriculum, however, did have its advantages, as the strict teaching style got me to learn some habits that were really tough to break. I also behaved better. However, it was strictly based on fear. I believed many of the disadvantages was it created fear in many students, probably traumatic experiences, and probably made children more rebellious. I observed many kids pooped in their pants on purpose, probably as a form of rebellion. When one kid would do this, other kids would do it as well. I often heard from one teacher that they did it on purpose to try to get on the teacher's nerves. One kid who seemed to be very rebellious, hyper, and often misbehaved in spite of discipline, often went to the bathroom in his pants so much that the teachers gave him a cold bath and shower as a punishment. The thing I disliked about that school was that most of the teachers force-fed us during lunch and snack time if we didn't like the food. Many of the kids, including me, often threw up as a result. I remember eating cheesecake for the first time, and I ended up throwing it up, and I still don't like cheesecake to this very day because of it. Me and one kid that was kind of like me named Chandler, who I think also had high functioning autism, but I'm not sure, was a person I really loved, and we graduated together during the summer before we went on to first grade. We both went to 2 different schools that were normal schools with a mainstream curriculum. We were both assigned a full-time aide from the 5 teachers from the school that oversaw us the whole time while we were in grade school. Once I was in grade school, my aide from SMEC School followed me around and gave me full-time watch over my behavior in front of the classroom of other kids. I took mainstream classes with a few out-of-class periods like one-on-one speech class with a speech teacher. My full-time aide would often help me with academics that I often struggled with. If I didn't need her help, she would often help other kids, so her full-time dedicated assistant wasn't as noticeable to others. I, however, felt it was noticeable to others, and I didn't like it. This caused me to feel really insecure, singled out, and embarrassed. I often acted out and misbehaved as a result. She continued to use the strict DBI discipline style from SMEC School, often putting my head down in front of the whole class whenever I misbehaved. I felt like I could have handled school fine on my own without her, but that is just my opinion. I had a full-time aide from first grade all the way up until 6th grade. In spite of the disadvantages of having a full-time aide, there were a few advantages too from this style of accommodation. First of all, my aide prevented possible bullying from my peers by educating the class about my struggles and my condition that the doctors knew at the time before it became known as Asperger's or ASD. This caused people to be nicer to me, which I didn't like on some level, but it was an overall advantage that made it easier for me to make friends and even have long-lasting friendships at that time. Many of the friends that I did have from 1st to 7th grade treated me normal and even forgot that I had some kind of neurological condition. My aide also helped me with academic-related work such as reading, which I struggled with at that time. Her one-on-one assistance helped me improve on my reading skills drastically. She was also a person who was very supportive at times where I was feeling down or was struggling with things. When I went into 8th grade in high school, I moved to a different state. I moved from Massachusetts to Michigan. In 8th grade, I was completely mainstream with no aide that watched over me and helped me. I liked the feeling of being more independent, especially with a fresh start in a normal environment without an aide. I was 100% fully mainstream at that point of my life due to improvements I made over the years. I, however, found I struggled socially and academically because I was in a much tougher school located in Grosse Pointe. Grosse Pointe was a wealthy area, and compared to other schools in Massachusetts, students were pushed to really excel. I had to really push myself on my own to finish work, and it was hard getting used to studying on my own, especially at a harder school without help. But I managed to do it, and I was proud of myself for doing it. During that time, high-functioning autism or Asperger's had just become known to the world and became part of DSM-5. It was 1999 around that time. I took testing during 8th grade and was officially diagnosed with high-functioning autism. Learning that was comforting, being I always knew I was different and knew I struggled with certain things. It was also comforting to know that I was finally had a label to describe my condition, especially knowing that there were other people who also struggled with that condition. It was difficult fitting in that grade because even though I knew that there were other people with high-functioning autism, I was the only one in that school who seemed to have it. Teachers in that school did their best to help me, but their lack of understanding made it hard. Once I attended high school, I took some special ed classes with other individuals on the autism spectrum. I found this much more helpful compared to 8th grade. In freshman year, I attended a resource class consisting of people on the lower end of the autism spectrum, because the high school I went to didn't have a classroom dedicated for people on the higher end of the autism spectrum. I found this class helpful and I liked it, although I tried my best to keep it private, and I tried to make sure other kids from other classes didn't see me. I would sometimes hide in the classroom between classes so kids wouldn't see me and prejudge me wrong. The teacher in that class was extremely nice, and I still keep in touch with her today as a friend. She did her best to try to accommodate with my struggles. However, she was more specialized in working with individuals on the lower end of the autism spectrum. Furthermore, many students in the class were nonverbal and had many meltdowns which made it distracting when I did my schoolwork. During my sophomore year, I switched into a brand new resource room that the school started that was specialized for those on the high end of the autism spectrum. There, the teachers were a bit more helpful whenever I struggled, because her teaching was more specialized for those on the high end of the autism spectrum. Like in my freshman year, I often used this class to do homework during the last period of school, and the teacher helped me whenever I struggled. The advantage of being in this class was that the teacher could utilize her help better compared to previous resource teachers in classrooms. I also met other students also on the high end of the autism spectrum in that classroom, which was not only comforting, but an outstanding advantage, being that we became lifetime close friends, and that benefited my social skills as well as theirs. This helped me be happier as a whole. The teacher also assigned a school counselor to meet up weekly in the classroom, where we all got to talk about our Asperger-related struggles, which was also helpful for our well-being. The teacher also assigned a speech teacher that met up with us regularly weekly as well, that helped us with speech, social skills, and educate us with life skills, by taking us out on field trips where we could learn how to purchase things like ice cream and postage stamps. Many of these field trips were great fun memories. However, this classroom did have its disadvantages. The resource teacher wasn't always able to help us when I struggled, and sometimes my meltdowns overwhelmed her. She made it clear that I was frustrating her when I was seeking guidance, and this often took a blow to my self-esteem. The visits from the speech teacher was often not very helpful, as her speech lessons were very basic. I never learned anything useful, only things I already knew, such as buying stuff at a store. She knew social skills, reading nonverbal cues, and how to deal with sensory overload were some of the things I really wanted to learn, but the school really didn't have an idea on how to effectively teach that. Once I enrolled into college, I was not only completely mainstreamed, like in high school, but I also didn't have any special ed type classes or teacher assistants either. I was completely on my own, with occasional specialized visits with my academic advisor and college counselor. My IEP from my previous school and resource assistance was sent to my college, but none of the colleges I went to had any specialized assistance that could really help people with Asperger's manage college, especially academically. However, the academic advisors I saw from the colleges I went to were still very helpful. They were able to let me know where the tutor labs were, where people could help my homework were at, when the professor's office hours were, and they also helped me enroll in class schedules that was most helpful. And they also directed me to help me fill out my student loan paperwork, which I found really confusing. I, however, had to take it upon myself to do these things. It was a bit hard at first to remember to do the right things like remember the deadlines due to my executive functioning. But with practice, I learned methods in how to be more organized and remember the deadlines. I went to 2 colleges, one for engineering, which I dropped out of, and one where I got a degree in digital media, as well as radio television broadcasting. When it came to special ed help, I would say college was the worst when it came to overall assistance. This is mainly because there is more assistance available for younger people on the autism spectrum. However, once you get older, there is less assistance available. Hopefully, there will be more assistance for adults available as time goes on, as society becomes more aware of the ASD conditions and learns more about them. Fortunately, there are currently less special ed schools using the defiant behavioral intervention approach that can potentially traumatize kids, and schools are now using a more friendly approach to help individuals learn in a way that is more mainstream and more easygoing to the person. There are also more schools today with more resources available dedicated to those with ASD, which have more students in the classroom with similar conditions, as opposed to students that are more diverse like in the 80s and 90s, which can help a person not feel singled out. To summarize all the helpful insight I learned from my school experience, I want to say, number 1, it is helpful for individuals to be in classes with teachers that are specialized in high-functioning autism. Number 2, it is important to not be too strict when it comes to discipline, or else it can be potentially traumatic for your child. And number 3, it is good to have a classroom with children that are similar to them because it can help them with their self-esteem, social skills, and overall happiness. And number 4, when it comes to helping individuals with things they struggle in, it is important to teach them things that are on their level and things they actually need to learn, or else it can be a waste of time and even frustrate them. Well, I hope you found my experience of being in various forms of special educational assistance through pre-K to college helpful. If you know any other things, such as parents of those on the autism spectrum or individuals themselves with the autism spectrum about being in special ed classes, what they could watch out for, be aware of, or how to best utilize the experience for their benefit, please share your insight in the comments below. Also, if you have any ideas of things I could talk about with my firsthand experience of being on the high end of the autism spectrum, please let us know. Please keep being informed, educated, stay healthy, social distance, be safe, and most importantly, love yourself. Well, thank you for liking my videos and subscribing, and thanks for watching.